Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So in this video we are going to be tackling the Elective ICT 2019 practical question number 1. Now this question is about HTML, and what we are going to be doing is we are going to create a few HTML documents. Then we are going to add hyperlinks that allows movement from one HTML document to another. Finally, we'll add a bit of information and also give it a nice background color. So this is an interesting question and let's get right into it. Alright, so welcome back once again. And here before us is the question we are going to be working on. So now I'll read through the question quickly and then we'll get started with a solution. So Elective ICT 2019 practical question 1. With the help of an appropriate text editor, create three web pages named web1.html, web2.html, and web3.html as shown in figure 1 in the folder created. Set the title of the web pages with your full name and index number. 1b. Create hyperlinks that allow movement from web1.html to web2.html, web2.html to web3.html, and web3.html to web1.html. So you can see the figure 1 diagram over here, and you can see the three rectangle boxes representing the HTML document, and the arrows, they represent the hyperlink. So yes, that's just about it. Now let's look at the further information below. Display your date of birth, example September 21st, 1909 on web 1, surname on web 2, and hometown on web 3, using header 1, header 2, and header 3 respectively. And finally, provide a background color of your choice to the three web pages. So there's the whole question, and you're going to get 15 marks if you're able to do everything. So yes, what's the next thing you'll do? Is basically to create the folder in which we are going to create our three web pages, our three HTML documents in. So let's head on to our desktop, and then you're going to create a folder. So just right click, new folder, then give your folder a name, which should be your initials and index number. So something like this. Yes, DG and then 101010. So this will be my folder. And then the next thing according to the question is we have to create the three web pages we see over here. So how do we do this? Now, usually you do this in your appropriate text editor. And the thing with appropriate text editor is when you are typing code, usually there is a special text editor made for it. But I've seen cases where on the WASSCE Practical day, where some people don't have it on their computer, so they are forced to use Notepad. And Notepad is a bit different. So for such situations, I've decided to use Notepad in this video so that in case you may be having issues, like you'll be able to follow along. So I'm going to open Notepad. That's the text editor we are using in this video. So I'll search it up, Notepad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it 3 times. So this is the first window I've opened, 2 more to go. So we're going to search it again. And the final time, let's search it one more time, Notepad. So the reason why I've opened Notepad 3 times is because according to the question, we need to create 3 HTML documents. That is web 1, web 2, and web 3.html. So each and every one of this Notepad window I've opened represents one of these HTML documents. So I'm going to now position them nicely so that we can see everything. Well, you can see everything in one go. Yes, so this is the 3 Notepad windows I've opened. Now, how do we create the HTML document? So in each and every one of this window, I want you to follow what I do. So we are starting with the one at the top left. So you click that one, you click the window, then you go to File, which is on the menu. Then you locate Save As, or you can press the shortcut, which is Ctrl plus Shift plus S. So that's the shortcut for Save As. You click it, you should see this dialog box that opens. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to locate the location of your folder that you created on your desktop. So what you do is, in case that you are not in the location like I am right now, locate desktop here. So you see these options here. So you locate desktop, and when you click that, you're going to see a list of options depending on what you have on your desktop screen. I only have the folder I created, so this is it. I'm going to double click, and inside the folder, that is where we are going to save our HTML document in. So you come to the file name, and according to the question, it says what? web1.html. So that will be the file name. So you go back and then you change the file name from this to what, web1.html. Now the next part is very important. That is the save as type. Currently by default it's going to tell you as a text document, but we want to save it as what, an HTML document, not a text document. So you click that option, or you click this drop down arrow, and you are going to see two options. So you want to select the second one, which says all files, then click on save. Now if you are to open your the folder you created on your desktop, so let's locate it right now. I'll go to desktop, open a folder, and look at what we have here. We have web1.html. You can see that the icon of the HTML file, it looks different. So basically, whenever you create an HTML file, when you do it successfully, the icon of your HTML file should be the same as your default browser. So my default browser is called the Brave browser. That is the name of my browser. It's called Brave. If your default browser is Microsoft Edge or maybe Google Chrome, then you are supposed to see that icon there. And even when you look at the type of the document, you can see it says Brave HTML document. So this is how you create an HTML document. Now let's go through the same process for the other two that we have to create. So at the left, the one at the bottom left, you click the window, then you go to File, Save As, then go through the same process. So this time it's going to be what, web2.html. Then you change the save as type to what, all files, and click on save. We do the same thing for the one at the right. So go to File, Save As, make sure that you are in your folder. They change the file name to what, this time was what, web3.html, and then the save as type, you make sure you selected all files and click on save. So now you look at your folder once again and you see the 3 HTML documents have been created. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to view them. You want to see what is inside of it. So just double click it, and to open your browser by default, so you double click the first one. Alright, so you can see right now we've opened web1.html and it is blank. Let's open the others as well. So web2 and web3.html. Now we have all of them opened. Nice. So you can see that all of them have been opened and there is nothing in it. That is because we just created a HTML document and we've not put in any content in it. That is why it is blank. But at least you can see the titles. You can see web1.html, web2 and web3. So that is how you know that, okay, everything is working fine. So that is good. That is good. Now let's go back to the question. So basically we've been able to do, first we've created our folder. Then we've created the 3 HTML documents and we've saved it in the folder. Now the next thing is to what? Set the title of the web pages with your full name and index number. That is the next thing we need to do. So since we are going to be working on 3 HTML documents, I want us to focus on one first. So we are going to focus only on web1.html, and then we'll come to web2 and web3, and you understand why in a moment. So yes, we are on web1.html. Now whenever you're typing HTML code, the first thing you do is you type in something called the doc type declaration. So I'll show you what it looks like, then I'll explain what it does. So in order to type this doc type declaration, what you do is you start out with a less than sign, then an exclamation mark, and then you type in the text doc type, followed by HTML, and a greater than sign. Okay, let me zoom in a bit. Alright, I think that's good. So this is the doc type declaration. Now, what does it do, or what does it mean? So in simple English, it's like saying to the web browser that, okay, hey, I'm writing HTML5 code, so please read it and interpret it properly. That is what it's basically saying. Because you remember when we created the HTML document, we opened it with our web browser. Basically, the web browser processes HTML documents, and it can process more than just that. It can process a lot more. There are other document types that a web browser processes. So when we specify the doc type declaration, it's like telling the browser that, hey, this is an HTML document, so process it the right way. Now, I'll say this in simple English. Doc stands for document. So in simple English, it's like saying the document type is HTML. So I hope that the understanding is there. Okay, so after you specify your doc type declaration, the next thing you want to do is you want to type in the HTML element. So what does it look like? It looks something like this, a less than sign. Then you type in the text HTML and a greater than sign. Now, when you see this alone, this is called a tag. But remember I mentioned HTML elements. So let me just type it completely, then I explain. So you type the other part, which is this. That is another less than sign, a forward slash, the HTML text again, and then a greater than sign. So this is what you have here. You call it an HTML element. This is what an HTML element looks like. Now, what is the difference between an element and a tag? So this is a tag. This is also a tag. But when you see them in their complete form, you call it an element. So what is the difference between the two tags? So I'll explain that next. So this tag, this is the first tag we see here, and we call it the HTML opening. Why am I not spelling correctly? Opening tag. So this is called the HTML opening tag. And this one over here, we call it the HTML closing tag. So the main difference between the two is the forward slash. You notice that the first one doesn't have a forward slash, but the second one has a forward slash. So that is how you tell between an opening and a closing tag. So once again, when you see them in their complete form, it's an element. Separately, you call them a tag. That is the difference. Now, another thing to note is that in HTML, not all elements have a closing tag. Some elements are just on their own. The way you see this, the way you see the opening tag, that is how they look like, but they don't have a closing tag. So that is just extra information. You can research about it. So now, what's the essence of this opening and closing tag? You can consider it like, for example, when you start a sentence, you want to start with the opening tag, but after you are done with the sentence, you need to end it with a full stop, a question mark, depending on the kind of sentence you are typing, right? So you can consider this closing tag as a full stop. So basically, in between the opening and closing tag, that is where you type in the HTML code. But what does this HTML element do? What does it even mean? So in simple English, it's like telling the browser that, okay, sorry, it's like telling the browser that, okay, anything that comes in between the opening and the closing tag of this HTML element, that is HTML code. Anything outside is not HTML code. That is what it's meant for. So that is what the HTML element does. That is what it means. So after you've typed the HTML element, then you move your mouse cursor in between and press the enter key 2 times. So in between is where we are going to type in the HTML code. Now, what do we do next after typing the HTML code? The next thing we need to do is the head section. Remember the question asks us to what? Set the title of the web pages with your full name and index number. So before we can even do that, we need a head section. Why? Because the head section, that is where we put in information about our page. And the sorry, and the title of our web page is also an information we need to put in. So before we can even put in a title, we need to create the head section first. So how do we create a head section? You type in a less than sign, then you type in the text head, a greater than sign, then you add the closing tag. So remember, this is the opening tag of the head section, of the head element. That is the right term. And then you type in the closing tag, which is a less than sign, forward slash, then a head text, and a greater than sign. So this is the head element. Now, I would like to introduce indentation right now. So you can see that the head element is basically on the same alignment. It has the same alignment as the HTML element. But since the head element is inside the HTML element, you need to indent it. So indentation, basically, you either press the tab key or you press the spacebar key a number of times. Now, if we're on an appropriate text editor for coding, we just have to press the tab key and it will create 4 spaces for us. But since we're on HTML, we need to do things manually. So let's just press the spacebar key 2 times. 1, 2. So this is indentation. Why do we indent code? Well, the purpose of indenting code is to make your code more readable. If everything is on one line, it will look messy. But when you indent it, we understand it clearly. We see that, okay, so the head section is inside the HTML. It's not the same as what we have here. It's not the same alignment as the HTML. It makes your code more clear, beautiful, and readable. That is the purpose of indentation. So after you've indented your code like this, of course, in between is where we are going to put in our information about our website, right? So we press the enter key, make sure that you also indent the closing tag as well. So you press the spacebar key 2 times. So you can see that the indentation is the same, like that. Now inside the head section, that is where we put in information about our page. That is where we are going to create our title. So In between, you're going to indent again. This time, you're going to indent 4 times because when you press the spacebar key 2 times, so that is 1, 2, it has been indented to the same position as the head element. But since the title will be inside, we need to indent it as well. So we press the spacebar key 2 times again, 1, 2. Then it creates what we call a title element. So it looks like this. This is what a title element looks like. So now you can see the way indentation works. I hope the understanding is there. Because the title element is inside the head element, we have to indent it. And because the head element is inside the HTML element, we also have to indent the head element. So that is the basic idea of indentation. It makes your code clear, readable. It makes your code clear and readable. So that is it. Now, according to the question, we should set the title of our web pages to your full name and index number. So that is what you do with a title element. You use it to set the title of your page. Now, in between the open and closing tag of the title element, that is where you type in your title. So you type in your full name. So I'm going to type mine, and then I'll type in my index number. Yes. Let me reduce this a bit so that we can see. Okay, let me reduce it a bit. Yes. So this is how you set the title of your page to your full name and then your index number. Now, how do we confirm that what we are doing is working? So in order to confirm that, we are going to go back to our browser. Then make sure you selected web1.html since that is what we are working on right now. Now, in order to see the changes, you need to refresh or reload the page. So there are many ways to reload the page. You can either close this and reopen it, or you can click on the reload icon. So it should look something like this. Yes, when you click it, it's going to reload the page. Or you can use the shortcut of F5, and that will also reload the page. But you see that I've reloaded the page a number of times, but we don't see any changes. That is because even though we made a few changes to our HTML document, we didn't save it. So anytime you make a change, you need to save it so that the change will reflect. In order to save it, you either press the shortcut of Ctrl+S, or you go to File, Locate Save. So you can see the shortcut is here, Ctrl+S, or you just click it, and that will save the changes. Now when you come back to your browser and you reload, you can see the changes have reflected. So now when you look at the top, you notice that initially it was what? Web1.html. But now it has changed to what? Our full name and index number. So that is how you set the title of your HTML document. Alright. Now looking at the question, I can see that we are done with question 1A. We can now move to question 1B, which says create hyperlinks that allow movement from web1.html to web2.html. Now we see that there are also 2 more links we need to create. So the basic idea of what we need to do here is in each and every one of these web pages, we need to create one link that allows movement to another web page. So for web1.html, we need to create a link in it that when we click that link, it should take us to web2.html. And in web2.html, we need to create a link. When we click it, it should take us to web3.html. And in web3.html, we need to create a final link that when we click it, it will take us back to web1.html. So you can see that the arrows are pointing to each and every one of them. The arrows represent the link. Now, since we are working on web1.html for now, we are going to ignore the rest. So we are only going to create one link. That when we click, it will take us to what? Web2.html. So how do we go about doing that? It's very simple. So we come back to our HTML code or HTML document. And in order to do that, we need to create what we call the body section. Now, what is the body section or the body element? The body element is basically the visible content of your web page or your HTML document. So when you look at your browser, you see that you've changed the title, but when you look below, everything is white, everything is blank. That is because there is nothing in our body section. The body section is the part of your website that you see, the text and so on and so forth. So in order to change this, we are going to create the body element. Now the body element shares the same alignment as the head element. So you press the enter key and then you press the spacebar key 2 times, 1, 2. Then you type in the body element. That is the opening tag for the body, then the closing tag. Yes. So basically, I don't know if you are noticing it. This is the basic structure of an HTML document. The doc type declaration, then the HTML element, which tells you that everything in between it is HTML code. Inside it, we have the head section, and afterwards we have what? The body section. So the head section contains information about our web page, and then the body section contains the visible part of our web page. Now to confirm this, let's indent it 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's type in some random text. Right now, make sure to save it so that the change will reflect. So Ctrl plus S to save, or you go to File and click on Save. Now go to your web browser again and refresh or reload the page. Okay, so you can see that we have reloaded our page, and now you can see the text. The text that we typed into our HTML document is being displayed here. That is because we created a body section and we've also added some text inside of it. So as I was saying, the body section is the visible part of our web document or web page. So that has been confirmed. Now let me just get rid of this random text, save it and refresh again. And you see that it has disappeared now. So that is just a bit about it. So now inside the body section is where we are going to create the link that allows movement from what web1.html to web2.html. So how do we go about doing this? What element do we use for that? So in order to create a link or a hyperlink, we need to use what we call the anchor element. Now the anchor element is different from the other elements that you know. So for example, you notice that when I say head element, you see the text head. When I say title element, you see the text title. When I say body element, you see the text body. But for the anchor element, you don't see that. So this is what it looks like. Less than sign a greater than sign. Then you add a closing tag, a less than sign / a and a greater than sign. This is what the anchor element looks like. In between it, you type in the text for the link. So basically, the text is what you click. So in this case, we are going to type in go to web 2. So this text will say go to web 2. When you click it, it should take you to web2.html. Now let's save it and see what it looks like. So we're going to save this document, go to our browser, then we are going to reload. And now we see the text go to web 2. But this is supposed to be a link. But currently we see it as a normal text. A link should be clickable. And usually links are underlined. And they are also usually in the color blue. But right now it looks like a normal text. So what is the problem? The problem is that we need to specify that. We need to tell the browser or the HTML code that, okay, we want it to be like a link. We want it to look like a link. And that is where something called attributes come in. So what is an attribute? An attribute is basically extra information you give a tag to change how it looks or behaves. So how do we implement that? Now, whenever you want to implement an attribute, you basically implement an attribute into the desired element. That is specifically the opening tag of that element. So in this case, since we want to change the anchor, the text in between the anchor tags to look like a link, we need to add an attribute. So we go to the opening tag of the anchor element. Then after the A, you press the spacebar key, and then you type this href equal to, and then you type a double quotation mark 2 times 1 2. This is what we call an attribute. Extra information you give a tag to change how it looks or behaves. So what does href mean? Or what is all this? Let me explain. So href is called the attribute name. Then we have the equal to sign, and we see this double quotation mark. Now this double quotation mark and everything that will come in between the double quotation mark is called the attribute value. Or let me just make it simple. This is the attribute name. Then we see the equal to sign. The text or whatever comes after the equal to sign is the attribute value. Simple like that. So what does href mean? Href stands for hypertext reference. In simple English, it's like saying the destination. So let me make it simple. If I click the link, go to web 2, href is like saying, okay, so when the user clicks the link, go to web 2, the destination of that link should be whatever is specified in between the double quotation mark, or it should be the attribute value. So in this case, the attribute value should be what? web2.html. So let me explain it once again. When I click the link, go to web2.html, href will tell the browser that, okay, so the person wants us to go to web2.html. So when I click it, take us to web2.html. The attribute value is the destination of the link. And this attribute name is what specifies the destination. That is how it works. I hope my explanation is clear. So let's save it and have a look at the changes. So Ctrl+S to save, go to your web browser, refresh, and now you can see the link. Initially it was a normal text, but now it looks like a link. So it says go to web 2. When we click it, it will take us to web 2. So in order to notice the change, I want you to pay close attention. Right now we see our full name and index number, but when we click the link, it takes us to where? web2.html. Just like what we have here, nothing in it. Now you can click this arrow to go back to web1.html. So you can see that the link is working. So yes, that is how you create a link in HTML using the anchor elements. So you have the opening tag and then an attribute with the attribute name called href, which stands for hypertext reference, and then the attribute value, which has the destination of the link. When I click this text, which will be the link on the screen, it will take us to web2.html. That is how it works. So yes, we are done with BI. We'll come to BII and III when we start working on Web2 and Web3.html. So for now, let's look at the further information. So under further information, we see display your date of birth, example, September 21st, 1909 on Web 1. So since we are working on Web 1, we are only going to focus on that. And then it says surname on Web 2 and hometown on Web 3 using header 1, header 2, and header 3 respectively. So that means that for Web 1.html, we need to display our date of birth, and then we need to use the header 1 to do that. So I'm going to copy the example and I'll use it for this tutorial. Alright, so how do we do that? Let's go back to our web1.html document, and after the anchor element you see here, we're just going to press the enter key about 2 times, or let's just do it once is so enough. Then you're going to indent again, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're indenting because the header 1 element is going to be inside the body element, so we need to indent it. Now what does the header 1 element look like? So in order to type the header 1 element, it looks something like this: a less than sign, h1. So h stands for header and 1, of course 1 is 1, so header 1, that is what it looks like. Then a greater than sign. Then you type in the closing tag, which is a less than sign / h1 greater than sign. So this is your header 1 element, and in between it you're going to put in your date of birth. So I'm going to use the example in the question. I'll paste it there, September 21st, 1909. This is how you create a header 1 with your date of birth. Now in HTML we have different headers, so I didn't explain that earlier. So we have header 1, which is the largest, all the way to header 6. Header 1 is the largest and header 6 is the smallest. And since the question told us to use header 1, header 2, and header 3, you'll be able to see the difference. You see that header 1 is bigger than header 2 and header 2 is bigger than header 3. So for now, let's save the changes, go to our browser and have a look. So you can see we have our link on top, and right below it we have what? September 21st, 1909. That is our date of birth using header 1. Okay, so we are making good progress. Now let's continue with the question. So the other part says what? Provide a background color of your choice to the 3 web pages. Okay, that is interesting. So how do we go about doing that? So in order to provide a background color to the 3 web pages or to web1.html, we need to use an attribute again. So where do we even put the attribute? Now when you look at your web page again, if you have to provide a background color, where would it be displayed? It will be displayed where the white is or where the blank space is. And what is the blank or the white space? If you remember what I was saying, that is the body section, the visible part of your page. So in other words, if we are going to change the background color of our web page, it means that we are going to have to specify an attribute. We are going to have to give an attribute to where the body element. To be specific, the opening tag of the body element. So we are going to the body element, and then we are going to specify an attribute. And the attribute you're going to type in is what? BG color, an equal to sign, and double quotation mark. Then in between the double quotation mark, you're going to add the color of your choice. So honestly, I would suggest you use simple colors. Don't use something too complicated. So in this case, I'm going to use something like light blue. Then I'm going to save it. Now let's see if it works. So we are going to web1.html and refresh your page and look at it. It has changed from blank or white towards light blue. So you can see that it works. Now let's come back to the code and I'll explain. So once again, there's an attribute. BG color is the attribute name. Then the equal to sign, which represents assignment. And then we have what? The color itself, which is the attribute value. that is light blue. So I don't even need to explain the color. You already know what it is. But the attribute name, what is going on here? So what this means is background color. BG stands for background and color is color. So we are saying that the background color of the body element should be what? Light blue. That is what it simply means. Now another thing to keep in mind is the spelling of color. Now when you are typing HTML code, make sure that you use the American way of spelling things. So for we in Ghana, we use British English. So if you have to spell color correctly, according to our way, according to our education system, we'd use COLOUR. Now save it and go back to your browser and refresh. And you see that it doesn't work anymore. It has reverted back to the default way. So that is something to keep in mind. Whenever you're typing HTML code, don't use the British English, but use the American way of spelling things, which is COLOR. Save it, refresh, and you can see that now it has worked. So yes, in case you may be having issues, this is something to keep in mind. So yeah, looking at what we've done and looking at the question, I can see that we are done with web1.html. We can move to the others now. So the reason why I was only focused on web1.html is because in web2 and web3.html is the same thing. The only thing that will change is the body section. So we can just copy and paste it everywhere. If you look at the question again, it says what? Create the 3 web pages, web1, 2, and 3.html, and then set the title of the web pages to your full name and index number. Look at the keywords. Set the title of the web pages. So it means that for web1.html, web2.html, and web3.html, the title is going to be the same. That is your full name and index number. So basically, in our whole HTML code, the title is going to be the same in all 3 web pages. So we can just copy and paste that. But the changes comes over here. That is from B. That is the hyperlink. So you remember I was saying that in web1.html, we need one link. When we click that link, it should take us to where? Web2.html. But when we come to web2.html, we need a different link. And this time, the link shouldn't take us to web1, but it should take us to web3.html. And you can see the arrow. The arrow is even pointing to it. There's no arrow that points from web2 to web1, but it is from web1 to web2, web2 to web3, and web3 to web1. So it means that the link that we specify in web1.html, so you can see that in web1.html, the link takes us to where? Web2.html. But when we come to web2.html, the link should take us to web3.html. So we need to change that. Also, when you look at the further information, it says what? Display your date of birth, September 21st, 1999 on web1. But on web2, it says what? Your surname on web2. And on web3, it says what? Your hometown. So we need to change that as well. And also remember, we have header 2 and header 3. So we also have to change that. So basically the whole thing we need to do is we can copy everything and then we change the body section. So in order to copy the HTML, the web1 text, you move your mouse pointer to the top and then you drag down to select everything. Or you can use the shortcut of Ctrl+A. So you make sure you selected the web1.html window. Then you use the shortcut or you just drag down to select everything. Now to copy it, you use the shortcut Ctrl+C, or you right click and from the menu you select copy. Then you go to web2.html and you paste it. So to paste it, you either use the shortcut of Ctrl+V, or you select the window, you right click, and then you select paste, and that will also paste it. So I'm going to zoom in a bit as well. So that is how you do it. So yes, make sure you save make sure you saved web1.html. Now we come to web2.html and we make the few changes. So in web2.html, the first change I want to make is the background color so that it looks different. So this time we're going to change it from light blue to light green. Now let's save it and have a look at it. So this is web1.html. Let's go to web2.html and now let's reload. So you can see the difference. When we reloaded it, the title has changed to what? Our full name and index number. The background color too has changed to light green. But the text is the same as what we have in web1.html. So we need to change that. So first the link and then the header 1 text. So we come to the link. So since we are in web2.html, the link needs to take us to where? Web3.html. So we are going to change the attribute value from what? Web2.html to what? Web3.html. Then we also change the text. So instead of going to web2, we are going to web3 instead. Then we save it, come to our browser and reload. And you see it has changed to web. Go to web 3. When you click it, it takes us to where? Web 3.html. And we haven't added anything to web 3. That is why it's still blank. So let's go back to web 2. Now the next part is the header 1. So according to the question, we need to use what? Our surname on web 2 using header 2, not header 1. And you will notice that header 2 is way smaller. So we are going to change this from header 1 to header 2. So the opening tag, we change it to header 2, and the closing tag, we also change it to header 2. Then we change the text in between from our date of birth to our surname. So I'm going to use my surname like that. Then we save it. Let's go and refresh. And you can see the changes are reflecting. The link has changed to go to web 3. And now we see our surname using header 2. You can see the way header 2 is smaller. You look at header 1, it's way bigger. But you look at header 2, it's much smaller. So header 3 is even smaller. And you can imagine header 6. So yes, this is how you do it. We are done with web 1.html and also web 2.html. Now we can copy this again and paste it in web 3.html. Alright, so in web 3.html, I'm going to zoom in a bit. And once again, we're going to change the background color. So this time I'll use something like, let's see, pink. Yes, I'll use pink. So now let's save it and have a look. So Ctrl+S to save. Then let's go back to our browser, go to web 3.html, and then we refresh or reload. And you can see it has the same content as in web 2, but the background color is pink. So we are going to change the link and then the text. So the link in web 3.html, the link is supposed to take us back to web 1. So we are going to change the attribute value from web 3 to what? Web 1.html. And we're also going to change the text to go to where? Web 1. Yes. And then the header. So according to the question, it says what? And what? Hometown on web 3. What? And what? Hometown on web 3 using header 3. So for web 1, we use header 1. For web 2, we use header 2. And for web 3, we are using header 3, respectively. Right? That's what it means. So we are going to change this from header 2 to what? Header 3 for the opening and the closing tag as well. And then we are going to change our surname here to where? Our hometown. So I'm going to use something like Ada. Yeah, as the hometown. Now let's save it, come back to web 3.html and reload the page. And you can see how header 3 is smaller. So the link takes us back to web 1, and then we have the hometown here, and it's very small. So header 1 is so big, header 2 is way smaller, and header 3 very small. So now let's click the links and see if they work. So I'm going to web 1.html, and we are going to start. So I'm going to click the link to go to web 2. And you see web 2 has a light green background color. Then I'm going to click this link to take me to web 3. And web 3 has a pink background color from what I remember. Now we click the link again to take us back to web 1. And now we are back to web 1. So yes, this is how your this is how the code should look like. This is how everything should work. Let me look at the question once again to confirm that we have done everything. So yes, I believe we have done everything correctly. This is the complete solution for Elective ICT 2019 practical question. I hope that it was enjoyable and my explanation was clear and concise. Please, if that was the case, then don't forget to support this channel by giving this video a thumbs up, hit on the subscribe button and the bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. So see you guys in the next video and bye for now.